everyone, hello, welcome to the next lesson on I Will Teach You Java, and we will be looking at objects in this lesson. And we left off in the previous video from this static void main method. We printed 3 statements to the user, and what we're going to do now is introduce the concept of classes and objects a bit more. And then maybe you can start to maybe playing around with classes and objects on your own. And we'll explain why objects are good and why we should structure things in classes. And before that, just go to the first package here, right click there and select new Java class. Now what we're going to do is create something called a class, and we can name it anything we want, but for the purpose of this video we're gonna demonstrate how we can move these print statements to a class that will be responsible for printing things out. So a good name would be, for example, print greeting. Now, print greeting is now a class, and what goes inside here is other code. As we've seen before, we can write methods, and the way we do that is we write first of all something called the return type. We type void and say hello is the name of the method, close and open parentheses, and then open and close brackets. Now what we're gonna do now is move the 3 statements from here, cut them and paste them over here. Now what we've done is created a method called say hello. What void is, we'll look into that later. But we've also filled this code block here, this space, with 3 statements for printing out a message to the user. So this means that we don't have anything now in the main method. So the question is, what would happen if we did run hello world main? Right, so it's empty. If you remember from the previous lesson, we did actually get 3 statements here corresponding to these statements. Now the way we go about to actually using the code we've written here, otherwise it would be just useless, we need to do something that is called instantiate this class. And the way we do that, it's also just Java recipe, and use a Java keyword called new, and what that does is create a new instance of this class. So what would happen now if we run the hello world main again? Well, it turns out it still doesn't print anything, and the reason for that is when we do a print, when we do a new print greeting, it would just create this object from this class, and the method, however, is still something that needs to be called upon. And the way we use this method and the way we can get access to this and actually get our print statements is we have to do something called assign a variable. So the way you do that is you write the same type to the left of the equal sign, and then you name something as you wish, which is the variable name. So what we have here is on the left hand side something called a variable, which is assigned the value of this. and as we know, the value of this is an object. And now there's only one step left to actually use this object. We can write this as mygreeter.sayhello, and that will print out the statements as we expected from the last lesson. So if we run again, we can see that we've moved code from here and put it in a separate class called printGreeting, and moved statements to this method. Now, what is the purpose of this? Well, in this trivial example, the statements could have been in here, but in order to demonstrate classes and objects and methods, we extracted this to a separate method, because in any application, a class and the objects that we instantiate are the basic building blocks for any application. And the way you do this, if you think about it in the real world, even if you build a house or a car, you usually separate things and split things up into different parts. And in a typical real world application, you have many more classes and objects from those classes that interact. Now, we could improve this, but for this video, I'm gonna let you as an exercise, take something. If you look around in your room, and you think about, or if you see an object, write a class for that object and write a method for that object. So for example, if I have I'm looking at my library now, so I have a book. I could go ahead and create a new class for that book, and I can go back to my main method and instantiate it as we saw before, and assign it to a variable. And this object now, myBook, is an instance of the class myBook, which I just created. And it doesn't do anything because we don't have any methods on it. But we could, for example, say this is a book which only has a title. And we can then say that, okay, print out the title of this book. And I can do this in the same way as we did before, system.out.println my favorite book. And in order to use that statement, we have to do mybook.printTitle. So this syntax is the object.printTitle, and we can run again, and it will print out my favorite book. Now, I just wanted you to see how we can create classes, and the way and the purpose of each class is not really something we've explained yet, and this is usually just one way of using classes, but the best way is when we fill this with different type of code blocks that we're going to see in the upcoming lessons. If you thought this video was a bit too abstract, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next lesson. We'll be looking more into objects and how they can be real and used in the real world. Yes, thank you.